Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. When Dingerin arrives on the world of Trask with his beat-up Razor Crest, I immediately thought we were looking at the outer rim version of Mon Cala. I mean, here was this oceanic world that was populated by two main species, Mon Calamari and the Corns. As an individual with an extensive knowledge of Star Wars lore, specifically the pronunciations of exotic names and locales, I wanted to grab Dingerin and steer him and his precious little sentient Kiwi away from one of the species on the planet. Now, how did I know this? How did I know that one of the species on this planet is inherently untrustworthy? Well, it's because I'm sort of a speciesist. I'm extremely interested in alien cultures and behavioral patterns because it's important to learn about other beings and determine if they're a threat to humanity. You see, most alien species unfortunately have evolved from very dangerous and turbulent circumstances, which have prevented them as a society to create the sort of structures that make them into decent beings. Take a look at humanity. Although there is an increasing sense that we are divided, in reality, we are probably closer and more united than ever before in human history. It only seems like we're on the edge of collapse because we invented a crazy technology like the internet that pumps way too much information into our primate brain, which haven't really evolved from a time when our social circles numbered in the dozens. But if you took your average Trump supporter and put them in a room with your average Biden supporter, or took an urban family and put them in the same room as a rural family, you'll notice that most people will try to avoid confrontation and try to find similarities and cooperate. It's actually one of our greatest traits, this desire to collaborate with our fellow humans. It's a direct result of our evolutionary needs. Sure, you have sociopaths here and there, but they're generally outed and destroyed. Most people fit in the category of good and honest and willing to cooperate with one another. These are the individuals that usually procreate and make it. Now, having said all that, aliens are a completely different mess. Our evolutionary path is a very unique and special one. I believe in human exceptionalism, and I believe that most non-humans are probably degenerates, which is why today I'm going to create a list for Dingerin and also you guys out there of 5 species of aliens that you probably should never trust. When encountering a new alien, it's always important to judge them by the cover of their book. I mean, after all, why would we have eyes if they're not here to inform us about our surroundings? What are they good for? Generally, if an alien looks evil, don't trust it, like the Deveronians, for instance. If I was, say, a peacekeeper in the lower levels of Coruscant, and then you came up to me and told me, "Hey, Alan, my Deveronian business partner ran off with all my money and ate my kids," I'd be inclined to say, that's on you, buddy. Why would you trust a Deveronian in the first place? I mean, these guys directly look like the classical illustration of Satan. He's got goat horns sticking out of his head. He's fireproof, eats sulfur-based life forms. I'd also probably say, hey, you're the reason why we're destroying our beautiful national parks by putting guardrails near cliff sides, you schmuck. Anyway, Deveronians aren't going to be on this list because it's just too obvious. But let's go back to the whole Mandalorian arriving on Trask scenario. So between a Mon Calamari and a Corn, you should always trust the Mon Calamari. And no, it's not only because Corns look like miniature Cthulhu squid people. You also have to take into account the history and culture of the Corn people. You see, the Mon Calamari and Corns evolved together. The more fish-like Mon Calamari are surface dwellers. For the most part, their cities are generally more shallow, and therefore they have more interactions with the outside world. They're also prolific shipbuilders, and their products help them create business connections with species from all across the galaxy. Corns, on the other hand, like to stay in the depths of the ocean. Their cities are built on the ocean floor where not even the brightest noon sun can penetrate. The Corn's main source of income is raw resource extraction, aka mining stuff and selling it to the Mon Calamari for ship production. And so as a species, they don't get much exposure to the outside world. They're fearful of change. They're very conservative and close-minded. And basically, they're xenophobic. But not in a very scientific and rational way like we are. The Corns are just closed-minded and hate everyone. Corns are also in general less prosperous than their surface-dwelling neighbors, and life is harder at the deeper parts of the ocean. And so their people are quite vicious when it comes to fighting for resources. Corn society is also extremely proud and self-centered, which only increases their isolationist worldview. So when doing business with the Corn, always assume that they see you as the other, aka something for them to exploit and probably steal from. To understand a species, you kind of have to understand their life cycle. Generally, the more competitive and ruthless a species' life cycle is, the more messed up the end result will be. Nemoidians are basically insects. Sure, they might have more sentience than a Geonosian hive worker, but in reality, they start their lives off in a very similar way. You see, baby Nemoidians, aka grubs, spend the first 7 years of their life as a maggot-like larva. They are cramped with thousands of other grubs in these hive structures where they have to fight against each other over a limited food supply. Now, if you're like me and you come from a culture that has had massive famines in the last few generations, aka mostly former communist countries, you're going to notice very different behavioral patterns compared to a person from a Western country that is wealthy and has well-stocked supermarkets. While people in free Western markets typically waste a lot of foods, especially us Americans, it's not uncommon to see people from famine cultures enter a buffet and literally take all of the food and hoard it for themselves. Trust me, I've traveled a lot in the world and I've seen some horrendous buffet etiquette that's almost shaken my belief in humanity. The key word there is almost, and the resources that were being hoarded were deep-fried soft-shell crabs. The Nemoidians are a million times worse in this regard. Because they aren't human, they lack the same type of support system that our culture has, which allows us to survive famines and still retain some level of morality and humanity. Which is why, like all humans who undergo extreme circumstances, people who come from famine cultures also have some very redeemable and amazing qualities, like being frugal and always prepared and learning how to share when there's so little to go around. Nemoidians have very few redeemable qualities. They are all born and grow up extremely hungry and malnourished. This is a hunger that basically corrupts every aspect of a Nemoidian's life. So whether it's getting more out of a business deal or more out of your slave workers, Nemoidians are ruthless in the pursuit of profit, power, food, and whatever else they can get their grubby little hands on. The reality is, in a society where the basics are always in shortage, there's no time to develop any restraint or any ethics or morality. You're probably going to start noticing some patterns emerge in this video. One of them is that aliens who avoid sunlight are probably going to be evil in one way or another. Now, I know a lot of you shitposters out there are going to be like, hey Alan, what about the gingers? They don't like sun and also don't have souls. Should we be careful of them as well? First of all, I really disapprove of stereotyping humans. We are all basically genetically the same. Even if gingers don't have souls and do burn very easily in the sun, the amount of sunlight they actually get is relatively high compared to the corans who live at the bottom of the ocean and our next species, the umbarans, who live inside of a nebula. So leave the gingers alone. Just because they don't have cool celebrity activists defending them from racism or whatever doesn't mean they don't deserve to be treated as humans as well. Umbarans also very likely have no souls. Just look at their dead eyes and pale complexion. Their society evolved isolated away from the rest of the galaxy. They're able to develop all sorts of new technology that in many ways surpass the technology in the wider galaxy. The Umbarans, like the Nemoidians, had a pretty rigid structure to their society, which was organized in castes. There are around 100 levels in this caste system, and only the top 10 caste levels were afforded certain luxuries of doing things like leaving their home planet and doing business abroad. Now, I know you're probably also thinking, hey Alan, don't humans have a caste system as well in certain cultures? Well, technically, India has a long history of using a caste system to segment and control society, but unlike the Umbarans, Indians are trying to reform their society, and officially speaking, there are no more castes in Indian society. So at least they are trying to become more fair and open-minded. Now, the problem with the Umbaran caste system is that unlike the Indian caste system, you aren't just born into a caste and have to stay there for the rest of your life. You actually have the opportunity to ascend caste levels, but it's usually done through subterfuge, blackmail, or even assassination. So the Umbaran society creates this environment that really rewards sociopaths, murderers, and other individuals who are willing to do anything for power. Basically, Umbarans would fit very well in DC as lobbyists or politicians. Which is why you should never trust an Umbaran, which is also probably why you should never trust a politician. Umbarans, because of their advanced technology and lack of opportunity to leave their homeworld, were an extremely arrogant and xenophobic species as well. Let's basically check off every factor that makes an alien species degenerate. For one, they evolved on a planet full of terrifying monsters, which is why Hutts are incredibly difficult to kill. They have redundant organs, can regrow almost any body part, including their brain, and have blaster-resistant skin. They can also easily crush a person with their weight or break every bone in your body with their powerful muscular tail. These killing machines also live an extremely long time, so don't let their sluggish and kind of sloppy appearance fool you. These individuals are not stupid, and they're most likely smarter than you are. As a matter of fact, the Hutts are probably some of the smartest and most ruthless criminals in the galaxy. The fact that they were able to keep control of their territory even as the Empire took control of most of the galaxy shows you just how good they are at negotiating. Hutts looked down on lesser species because of their physical attributes. The only individuals they trusted or saw as equals were usually family members. But then again, murder amongst competing Hutts was quite common as well. So never trust the Hutt because most likely they don't even see you as the same level as they are. Now, the Trandoshans are a bit different from the other groups we've mentioned so far. They're probably one of the dumber species on this list because they are lizards and most likely have not developed higher functioning brains. Therefore, their society has not really developed beyond the more basic hunting cultures we see in primitive man. To Trandoshans, hunting is life. And no, I'm not talking about population control or trying to feed their young. Trandoshans were trophy hunters. Historically speaking, they tended to prey on Wookiees because their home planet of Trandosha was in the same neighborhood as Kashyyyk. Hunting was so important that it's actually built into the Trandoshan religion, which is honestly one of the dumbest belief systems I've ever seen. You see, they basically worship this goddess called the Scorekeeper, and the more interesting and rare and exotic animals or sentient beings you hunt down and kill, the more points you get. And if you get a certain amount of good points, I'm sure you'll get virgins in the afterlife or something like that. So you have to understand this is the kind of relationship that Trandoshans have with other sentient beings. While you might be curious about a wide range of things when you meet a Trandoshan, the only thing that they're thinking about when they see you is how many points you're worth and how they can hunt you down and kill you so that they can have a better afterlife. So guys, there obviously are more than just 5 alien species that are not to be trusted. I'd say probably the majority of alien species in Star Wars should not be trusted, and it just goes to show you how special humanity is, which is why I love you guys all. I know that like 94% of our viewers are human based on our analytics. So yeah, I just gotta say, humanity first, guys. I'm really proud of being human. I love being human. Let's stick together and be nice to each other, okay? We're gonna make it. Also guys, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our content. Even if you aren't human, you can do that as well. Just to put that out there. And as usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.